But we'll jump into, again, the slide that we'll focus on is American Senior Benefits. And just to tell you a little bit about the national organization, okay? It is a national insurance organization, and it works in the pocket of insurance and financial products to individuals actually of all ages. So we have coverage and services for both 0 to 85 years old. And so our focus sometimes is in the Medicare space, but we specialize in life insurance, all types of life insurance from, babies to those that are up to 85 years old. We have guaranteed issue, we have whole life, we have term life and index universal life and college funding different products and so on. And even for, younger children to have specific coverage that helps them be able to kind of develop cash value until they're 18 to use towards, again, education, if that's what they'd so choose to use it for. Medicare, Mick mentioned it, usually those that are 65 and older. What happens is that you usually move, like you've kind of experienced, if you're a retired SUAA member and we're an employee, and then moved from the standard group insurance over to independent or Medicare, then you're well aware of the Part A and Part B, red, white, and blue card that's original Medicare, and then either working with a supplement or an advantage plan, and then a Part D prescription plan. We work in that space and represent all the carriers. And again, like Mick said, kind of the HR shopping guides for individuals to make sure that they're informed on what best choices would be for their specific situation. We work in the long-term care space. This has been where SUAA has brought us in and said, hey, we'd love for you to connect with members on this and be able to talk through whether they're still continuing to work. They may be younger, maybe 50, 55 or so, or even a little younger. Sometimes people pull the trigger on long-term care in a younger age, and then others, for whatever circumstances, wait until retirement and can be 65 or 70 or 75 years old and so on. And so that's something we work in and be able to try to help people understand what they're eligible for and the different types of long-term care. We work, it's SUAA, it's got an annuitants association. So pensions many times act like annuities. And it's one of those areas that we work in and keep kind of the space clear in reference to what SUAA offers their employees. And then also, you may know folks that may want to look at annuities within their portfolio, within their 401k, their IRAs, and so on, and to position themselves differently to be able to make their money work more effectively for them. So the managed money is unique on the side of using fiduciaries, and so that is a part of our national organization and also Key Retirement Solutions. I mentioned about 220 plus carriers across the United States. We work with A plus to B plus rated carriers and a wide range of trusted carriers that we work with. The agents are considered brokers, and so this is where SUAA can make the connection, say, with Key Retirement Solutions in the state of Illinois, based upon proximity. It doesn't limit us. Many times we are licensed in several states, but for our purpose today, it's just basically focused in Illinois. But we have agents that are licensed in all 50 states. We're both local and then also national. And we find the most affordable and effective solutions for clients and, based upon their financial or their specific needs. And so that's helpful for you to know about American Senior Benefits. And the next slide talks about a little bit more of Key Retirement Solutions and locally how that was built and put into existence. ASB, or American Senior Benefits, allows brokers to raise up a team, raise up an agency, similar to, say, State Farm, but we are not captive. In other words, we have a large assortment of products and services and carriers, and that we can name it something more personal to that specific individual or team that is locally in their territory. And so that kind of helps you on the key retirement solutions. If you go to the next slide, if I can do that or not, I don't know if I can do that, but KRS started really with a vision very much like ASB to unlock insurance and retirement potential in everyone we serve. And so we've got a little over 50 years experience with the executive team in this industry. We have an agency in Geneva/Batavia, Illinois, and then also down south a little bit, Normal, Bloomington area. We've got some representatives in Peoria and across Illinois. And nationally, we are in 7 other different states with about 50 brokers serving, clients and so on. And again, just remember, ASB or American Senior Benefits is the national organization that we represent, and that's our covering, that's our umbrella. That's who we are compliant with in all specific business contexts. And then we basically try to educate and inform, and then in reference to most reasonable or reliable coverage in a specific area that a person is asking. The next slide to just focus on is in reference to SUAA and our referral partnership with American Senior Benefits and how that works together. And so we're given at times individuals to be able to reach out to us and be able to talk about whether it be long-term care and do a little fact-finding mission in reference to, again, SUAA is an advocacy organization, for active and retired employees of the Illinois public universities and community colleges and part of SERVS. And so we've built that relationship in such a way that SUAA has said, hey, ASB or American Senior Benefits, we'd love you to come in and, like Mick said, kind of be the human resources or HR or those bringing educational options, informative options, and seminars on specific areas to meet clients' needs or goals, or at least even looking at, what their dream would be, for retirement and their health goals, life goals, financial products and services that best fit, right, their specific situation in their portfolio. You can kind of see where the arrow fires down to. This is at times where American Senior Benefits certainly collaborates with Key Retirement Solutions, and based upon our location and our company working under that umbrella, this is the connection between SUAA and American Senior Benefits. And I hope that's kind of helpful. Anything you want to add to that, Mick?
No, I think you nailed it, George. We're effectively your white glove shoppers for all things into retirement, as you mentioned. So, and that's why we've been brought in, because we're capable of giving that personalized service.
Yeah, and just this is more informative on the side of helping you be able to understand the connection so that it builds a relationship of trust. And, we definitely take on integrity and character as paramount, and confidentiality with clients, and especially with, SUAA, call them members or those that have, retired or those that are still working. We value those relationships very much on the side of helping them. And really, it's an honorable thing where SUAA has said, hey, we'd like you to, come in and help them be able to make sure everything is in place, even in the midst of their continuing work, or helping them retire and transition smoothly, or even in their retirement years, to be able to allow that relationship you had with SUAA for years to say, hey, we want the best for you. And so to talk a little bit about Key Retirement Solutions and kind of some of our bullet points and kind of the way we work. The next slide just gives a couple of things to be able to share. American Senior Benefits, along with Key Retirement Solutions, are always putting people first. And so this is an important aspect to where each person's individual and in their unique situation. And to be able to talk and be able to get to know an individual and what some of their goals are and how to have that personal attention is very, very important for us on an educational and informative way. And so there isn't push, there isn't this, constant sales push and so on. It's helping people be informed rather than not informed about whatever it may be, long-term care or Medicare, retirement planning or life insurance or legacy building. Those things are very important, even at times Social Security strategies where a person may be 60 or 62 or moving towards retirement and they don't know when the best time is to begin to receive their Social Security and so on. Well, that's helpful on the side of making sure that report is clear on when's the optimal time. We do in person and virtual calls and over the phone and have individual strategies. And you've got to remember it's complimentary. And so these reviews do not cost anyone anything. And that is very helpful to know in reference to, us being able to work with you and be able to have you be able to call on us when you have questions and for us to make that connection and help you as best we can. I hope that makes sense. Any thoughts before we go on the next slide there, Mick?
I would say, I'm glad you mentioned our services are free. It doesn't cost anything for you. And it's also not just about SUAA members, but your relatives as well. Everyone on the call today knows somebody that is having an issue with their Medicare. So, we're here to be a resource ultimately.
Yeah. Well, that's great, Mick. Yeah. And the next slide just is kind of for a moment, just to kind of give you a couple of things in reference to Key Retirement Solutions. Independent broker agents, 200 of the top carriers, specialize in representing their clients. In other words, we shop for you. We may look at something that, let's just say it's a Medicare supplement, okay? Well, we look at Blue Cross, Aetna, Humana, we look at Cigna, United Healthcare, and about another 6 to 10 in the state of Illinois that are bringing their best to the competitive field of Medicare supplement world. And so that's helpful for you to know that we can really look at that, and we're compensated by carriers and not you. And that's an important, field to this. And again, remember the educational side and informative is very important on the review side of sitting or talking with you. And like Nick said, complimentary consultation and free services. The next slide is a little bit more intensive on the side of really the 4 pillars that kind of in the description of our time together today, that it talks about 4 foundational pillars that Key Retirement offers that impact retirement. And so if that slide could come up, if that's possible, that would be great for those that can see it. On that left side, I'll just go briefly, and we mentioned this, and in the kind of the subject matter of today, this gives you an idea of what is in our arsenal. Life insurance, from final expense to term life protection to IULs, which are index universal life policies that, can be tweaked and worked in retirement income. That may be a younger person. You may be working at SUAA or at a university and there's retirement and so on, but you may want a separate policy that's working for you also, or potentially for your children. And then you may be the owner and they're insured. And it really isn't about death benefit. It's about cash value growing over a long period of time for that to be in place, in addition to potentially whatever field that young person goes into and benefits that they can have. It can really be a college fund, it can be a retirement fund or an income. All of those are very valid in that first pillar that we take a look at. And we do reviews all the time. And sometimes we, talk with people or sit with people and say, hey, I haven't looked at my policy for, 10 years. And sometimes we'll take a look at it pretty quickly and review it and say, hey, this is a great policy and thumbs up, keep it current. And other times we may have some options and strategies that may work better for you in the chapter that you're in your life. The second pillar talks about health. The health insurance side, many times we focus on the 65 and older, or those that are eligible for Medicare if they may be disabled in some way, and so maybe younger. And so that's a big piece within American Senior Benefits and Key Retirement Solutions. And so just know whether it's Medicare supplements, Medicare Advantage plans, Part D prescription plans, we look at all of the new plans. Within 4 weeks, it's October 15th, which is the wonderful annual enrollment period where all of people can take a look at their present plan and be able to shift it or change it, depending on the benefits, depending on the coverage and what has changed from one year to the next. That may be specific to Advantage plans and Part D prescription plans. And then the Medicare supplements are a little different. They're month to month, but they also have changes that unfold, and especially, premiums that increase. But that's all to be able to be reviewed. And if a person isn't eligible for long-term care, we also have short-term care, and along with long-term care options, an incredible subject that has been refined over the last 10 years, where traditionally people have almost kind of said, no, I can't do that because it's too much money. There are options and hybrid specific types of programs and policies that are always worth taking a look at that could be very helpful. Many times we work with people with hospital indemnity, and that's basically in reimbursement, along with either even critical care or cancer care, or those that may be really cardiac or high blood pressure, diabetes orientated. Those are additional services that we do along with dental and vision and so on. They're ancillary in that specific pillar. Okay, so life insurance, health expense, retirement. We work with fiduciaries in our offices across the United States, and they are usually financial advisors too. But fiduciaries work on a performance basis, and so it is only a percentage, along with the admin fee versus an admin fee and percentages, and then commissions. And that is a difference that we value. It doesn't cost the specific person as much to have a money managed portfolio. And then it is all based on performance, similar to Fisher Investments, that their brand is, if you win, we win. That's the idea. And the portfolio management, just to say on the side of what has been put together at no cost and complimentary, has been pretty amazing with our fiduciaries that really have almost like a 10,000-foot view down on a person's entire portfolio. That may include all assets, Social Security, pensions, real estate, any kind of will or trust, or if you moved into the required minimum distributions or taxation and Social Security income. It lays it out in such a way to where we look at life expectancy, we look at legacy building, and what your greatest desire is, so that you make sure you're not running out of income. And then whatever income you may have left over when death knocks on your door, that goes specifically to exactly where you want it to go. That's a very, very important piece in the retirement that at times is missed. And there can be several reports that are done by people. And this is like a comprehensive report that is very helpful to just basically give an individual or a couple a second set of eyes to take a look at something and say, hey, how am I really doing performance-wise and overall? And are all my ducks in a row? And are any tweaks that need to be made and to be aware of? And we work with, fixed and growth and safe products with lifetime income options. Those usually are what are called fixed indexed annuities or fixed annuities, or annuities that focus on income for life. And those are very important because many times several of those have what's called a long-term care rider included in it, where some may not be eligible for long-term care in a traditional sense. This may be the exact choice they want to make. And it's like, wow, this works. And then the long-term strategies, we work with Social Security seminars, Social Security reviews, and giving people incredible, kind of maximization reports. We do the Medicare reviews. We do the risk assessment review. That's a simple way to where many times a person, as they're going through their life, their key goal is accumulation. And as we get older, usually 55, 60, 65, usually we're really focused on safety or what's called preservation to protect the assets versus aggressively going after major growth with potential vulnerability to loss. And so that kind of helps you in those four foundational pillars that Key Retirement Solutions or KRS offers. All of our specific individuals we work with, whether it's in a seminar fashion or whether it's one-on-one or in that contact, through, SUAA and partnering with them, that questions we can ask. And again, you can also, let us know, this is what we're interested in. And this may not be of interest, but it may be a conversation to have to just help you. Anything else, Mick, before we move to the next slide?
Well, to your point, again, what we're doing is formulating an individualized game plan for the individual, because this is so specific and detailed, to that person's strategy, where you are in life, and your resources. So, yeah, you explained it beautifully, George. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no. And, and the next slide is a wonderful slide, because we like to have some potential Q&A or question and answer time. And I hope that that's been kind of a concise way for you to be able to understand, hey, this is SUAA, and their executive team and leadership has said, we would like to partner with American Senior Benefits. And we trust them. They have a great track record. They've got the top carriers, and they have representatives that are educational and informative and not pushy, and it's complementary, and it's a relationship that we can build. And through that, this is where Key Retirement Solutions has come in to be one of the key players to connect with, again, the SUAA employees, whether retired or whether continuing to work. And so, yeah, how would you like to open it up? Thomas and Brian, I think you're on the call and stuff, but if there's questions, that may be either through the chat or even just unmuting your microphone and just respecting the person that may be asking a question.
George, can you hear me?
I sure can.
Okay, this is Brian, and I don't think we want everybody to just unmute and start shouting out questions, but I will ask them to join go to the chat function, or there's also a Q&A function. If you don't see the chat, there should be a Q&A. And while you're doing that, I threw out the first question. What does a typical Social Security review entail?
Okay, great question. Wow. All right. So when a person turns a specific age, which most of you know, you start receiving Social Security statements. All right. And based upon what you have put into the system governmentally, there's a certain amount that becomes an income. And so sometimes that's different for teachers, or even for SUAA, it may be lower just based upon the pension side of what may be ingrained in your retirement plan already. But again, there's a number, say like it's 62 and then 65. And then usually there's a full retirement age, say 67 and 3 months, kind of thing. And then up to 70. They'll give you those specific income numbers per month, what you are eligible to be able to take when you choose to turn it on. And so we basically ask for statements, or at least those specifics on the side of what is the income allotment. Let's say if you're 63, it's 2,000, and 65, it's 3,100, and then 67, it's a little bit more, and then at 70, hey, wow, it's 38,000 or 3,800. All right. Well, that helps us be able to plug it into a maximization report that is complementary. And whether you're an individual or whether you're a couple, we put both of them in, because there's different strategies for individuals and also for couples. And then we ask, what do you believe your life expectancy would be based upon your family history. And doesn't have to be specific to where, when are you going to die? And this isn't the question that we usually ask, but if there's a number out there that you would like this to go to, say people are living longer, and some say, well, I think 86 because my mom was 82 and my dad was 80. If I make 86, well, I've had an added 5 years and I'm doing okay. Others say, hey, take it to triple digits, man. I'm going to 100. What that does is basically outline the report in such a way to where it lays out your income for that entire time when you turn that income on as an individual or as a couple. And that report usually gives you 2 or 3 strategies, one that's optimal, another that shares, hey, if you take it a little earlier, or, and so on, you may leave some on the table, but it may be worth it. Or if you even take it earlier, and let's just say you have some life events going on or major health issues and so on, it may be wiser to take it earlier. And then we talk about taking it earlier does have some, call it penalties to it and limitations. And we explain that. Does that help you, Brian?
Absolutely, George. Thank you. Another great question just came in from Gene. He's a CSRS retiree, and so as a result, they're enrolled in the state of Illinois CVS Aetna's Medicare Advantage Trail Plan. Yeah. So his question is, does he even really have an option to change Medicare plans? Or is the state make that choice for us?
Yeah, no. You know what? That specific plan, what usually they communicate is that if you opt out of it for a different plan, let's just say you want the Medicare supplement as an individual, or if you want a different Advantage plan, that you run the risk of not being able to step back into whatever the carrier, for that year is that CSRS is using. Let's just say it's Aetna. And my recommendation is always, why don't we take a look at what Aetna is offering? And I've sat with a few to where that's a solid plan. Okay, and it's not often beatable in reference to traditional PPOs that are Advantage plans, even though the benefits may be comparable. And so I'm always cautious, and making sure that it's the right shift to make. And then why is that person wanting to make it, and to make sure that that works properly and it transitions well. And so it kind of answers your question, but I think there's a certain limit, like you can try it for a year in a different plan, and then you can opt back in. But if you stay outside of it longer, then you can lose that specific coverage with, let's just say it's Aetna's PPO under the SUAA or CSRS plan as a group plan.
George, I got to jump in there a little bit. SUA does not have or administer a plan in any way, shape, or form. This is the state of Illinois plan that is selected by the State Department of Central Management Services. The last time they did it was with United Healthcare. Right. And then CVS Aetna is the plan, the chosen plan through December 31st, 2027. At that point, CVS Aetna will have the right of renewal for a subsequent 5 periods of 1 year. So 5 years total possible. Now, what we're experiencing, though, for the listeners on the call, in case you aren't getting this information, we've got a one-pager that breaks it down. And of course, we've sent an email recently on some discussions we've held with both CMS and CVS. So to be clear, one of the questions that just came in was, we who are covered by CSRS have no choice for Medicare supplements. We were recently shifted to Aetna Advantage for drugs. We do not trust such Advantage plans. We have no personal choice in this. And in fact, that's the very central point SUA has been making, is that there has to be greater choice. There's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all plan for the people of Illinois, let alone the retirees of Illinois, let alone why just because you're retired and worked in Illinois do you have to live in Illinois in order to get your coverage. So the short answer is yes, SUA is pushing back on these circumstances, but it is a longer marathon than it is a sprint. So we welcome your feedback on these issues. The other thing I'll throw out there is that it seems less to be about CVS Aetna or United Healthcare and more to be the fact, I think it was 2023, that 1 in 5 healthcare providers refused to accept the Medicare Advantage program. Didn't matter which Medicare Advantage program. And so we're addressing that. We're communicating that to our partners at CMS. I believe at times CVS Aetna is also very frustrated. What we've come to learn is that it's challenged the insurance carriers as well to be able to access certain locations. As you know, Mayo Clinic has been one area where our individuals have not had as much help or support or access as they should have. And so we're working through those issues, but I cannot say today that there's any, immediate answer or relief on the horizon. We're continuing to look for how you guys can get into those supplement plans.
Yeah, and Brian, I'll add to that. Appreciate that because that helps me on the SUAA side. And then again, the specific offer with Aetna. I had a specific case, an older couple in their late 80s, and one was a retired pilot and one was a retired teacher. And you are exactly right that Mayo Clinic sent out letters stating that they would not be taking these specific plans for year 2026. I was able to shift them to a different Advantage plan. And then also, there's a couple of options in the midst of the supplements. And supplements work in such a way that they're very strong medically wise. They pick up what original Medicare does not cover. And that comes with the privilege of no networks and all 50 states and any doctor, any facility, hospital that takes Medicare, you're in. So Mayo Clinic is like, yeah, bring your Medicare supplement to us. Absolutely, you're in. And so that choice may be an option for them. And I think what happens is—
Well, George, again, the choice is limited for our CSRS retirees because the Medicare Trail Advantage plan, that's correct, is provided as a benefit. It's free. So the idea of someone to pay for something that they already have and should have, according to the legal precedent of the state, is different. But we've got another question that just came in. How expensive would long-term care insurance be for someone who is already 74 years old?
Okay, great question. All right, so two ways to approach it is one, that if you were wanting a specific amount of, let's just say, cost per month, and so the traditional side of long-term care would, again, vary even for if the person's healthy, if they've gone through specific life events, and if they're eligible for long-term care. And so we have to kind of balance what's in the kind of the eggs of the basket to where each company, let's just say if you wanted to say, hey, I've got $750 a month or $500 a month that I could really use in this specific category. Then we would run the numbers and see which company kind of gives the most benefit per month. And that helps be able to offset the cost, if it was just self-funding, and then protects that specific policy and for coverage for the person. The other side is an asset-based that would be using life insurance or a specific annuity chassis that would allow them to be able to say, hey, if I've got $100,000 in my portfolio and I may have $700,000 in my full portfolio, then we try to look at allocating a specific portion to be used in that way to where it still is safe, it's growth orientated, but it also is long-term care orientated of when 2 out of the 6 specific daily functions are not available. And when that long-term care rider kicks in, that can be whatever's in the specific account. Other companies and carriers offer a doubling factor. So say the 100,000 would become 200,000 to be used in that time for long-term care use. And that can either be provided, in a monthly, kind of I don't want to say stipend, but income, so that even when the 700 is looked at as the larger picture, that 100 would grow faster, literally, with that long-term care, where managed money doesn't grow that fast as we, age and so on, especially when we're wanting to protect it. So those would be the two options. The challenge with, any kind of assisted or long-term care is the cost. And in Illinois, it's anywhere, depending on the, the needs of the individual, from anywhere from, say, $6,000 to $8,000 per month upwards to, 12 to 15,000. And that's depending on where you go and what facilities you visit. And again, what their, specific, coverage is. That with full nursing care? Is that with, rehab? Is that with, 24/7 care? Those are all dynamics in it that aren't easy to, always say, hey, this number would be exactly the amount that you need. I think each one's a little tailored on the side of personal and saying, what can you afford? And then what would you be willing to invest in yourself, or for you and your spouse, it may be joint. We just did a joint annuity, and that was $15,000 a month that the person was going to be paying. And that was going to cover both he and his wife if and when a long-term care event was triggered. And then, his portfolio, again, naturally may be larger, but that still gave him the option to say, I've got things covered and I may not have to fully self-fund and drain all of my finances. This is going to be a part of really filling that gap. Am I still in here?
I would add those are nice because it really changes the order of operation to which you are going through your assets and allows for that insurance to kick in and be allocated ahead of time so that you're not necessarily having a tax event going through your resources first and foremost when you have a medical incident occur. So it becomes a bit of a firewall and changes the order of operation in which we're going through our resources. So I like that style.
Yeah, we again, it's difficult on the side of, that's what sometimes is the limitation, is that we assume we can't be covered, and that's the danger. Is that again, both of these individuals were 66 and 68, and then we've done long-term care for a person up to 80 years old. And so again, it just depends on what the need is, what they're wanting to accomplish, and then how we go to bat with the carriers and say, okay, what coverage is available and what would be an option for them, and then present it. And again, the person, that may be eligible is the one making the decision, and we just try to put it in place so that they have peace of mind.
And to that end, I would say, let's not predetermine whether you're going to be qualified. Frankly, my team and I, George and I, we are good at finding people coverage, long-term care, coverage that they need. So don't disqualify yourself thinking like, oh, there's no way I could afford it or couldn't health qualify. Let us have a crack at it. You'd be surprised at what we're actually able to do to help you out in that regard.
Yeah.
Okay, gents, we have one more here. We have a 62-year-old retired service member and in their second year cancer-free. Will Medicare accept them with no issues?
Well, original Medicare will. That's your red, white, and blue card, and your Part A and Part B. The only carrier that would be able to be looked at would be Blue Cross Blue Shield in reference to their Medicare supplement. The Advantage plans, they accept everyone. And so there's no health qualifying for the Advantage plans, which is a wonderful option. I want to be careful because I value both of those Medicare supplements and then Medicare Advantage plans. And so even in that older couple, again, she has gone through cancer and she's gone through heart valve surgery. He's been hit the last couple of years, and they transitioned out of both. She transitioned out of the Aetna PPO for teachers, and then he transitioned out of the United Airlines pension group Advantage plan. And again, there was a plan that really fit them and accepted them, even in the midst of the, it was a special enrollment because it was coming to grips that they weren't able to go up, and both of them have been up to Mayo Clinic. And Mayo Clinic was saying, you can't make doctor's appointments up here because we don't take your plan. And that just is scary. So yes, I would say there are options. One on the Medicare supplement side, I would definitely, look at Blue Cross Blue Shield, which is competitive. Through the years, they've been one of the most expensive in the Medicare supplement field, but they have really come down on some of their premiums to be able to compete, because Medicare supplements are federally regulated. So your Plan G is a Plan G no matter what carrier, but all the carriers charge a little different for it. And then most of the Advantage plans are a zero premium, but they vary in reference to, say, co-pays or cost share, and then what's called maximum out of pocket for that 1 year contract. And so we make sure, hey, that plan that that couple went on was helpful, because even their maximum out of pocket with the Aetna program was lower. It wasn't too far different in making the transition if in the event they had something major happen and then they hit that, maximum out of pocket in that 1 year contract. Is that helpful?
I think so.
Yeah.
And if not, what we need to do is, George, Mickey, you guys, we want to have your contact information and make sure everybody gets that. Didn't see a contact slide, but we'll make sure that everybody gets your contact information and can set up those complimentary reviews, et cetera. Another question here is from someone, a community college employee who is going to plan to retire on June 1st, 2026. About 5 years ago, they had a LTC policy they obtained through a partnership like this with SUAA. And they're wondering if it's possible to look into policies to add on to this to increase their coverage to perhaps cover institutional care.
Okay, so if I heard that correctly, that they're going to stay within the Aetna, let's just say their Aetna program once they retire.
Well, it's the LTC. They have LTC
Oh.
that they got about 5 years ago through a partnership with SUAA. I'm assuming it was you guys. And they're asking if they can add on to that now for some institutional coverage, for coverage in an institution.
You know what? That would be a question I think that would vary from carrier to carrier. I'd have to take a look at that policy to be able to read through it to see if that is a note or an extension or a rider that, we can add to this. And many times that's specific to the policy or coverage when receiving it. And then you like kind of, I don't want to say buy into it, but you have that as an option. And you may not have that as an option, and then some may have it as an option, and you choose that at the beginning of the policy. If it's a benefit that the policy offers, I would say yes. I'd be more apt to say yes, but I don't want to assume that, because if you've been in long-term care coverage for a period of time, it just depends on when it was done and how it was originally set up.
So it sounds like it depends on a case-by-case basis in a lot of these situations. And that's probably why that complimentary review is so important.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it just is helpful, just because if I say something and say, oh, yeah, that's covered, and then, you have an event and you're institutionalized and you're trying to get a hold of my name and where I live, going, what did you do? God, I don't want to find myself inaccurate. And so that's why, that complimentary review or consultation, and even seeing at times we've had people, hey, this is, I'll text you, the first 3 or 4 pictures of the policy, and that may be enough. Or we just set up an appointment and sit down and just, get to know you and take a look at what you have.
Yeah, we would always prefer to under-promise and over-deliver. But, the long and short of it is, short answer is yes, long answer is how, right? Chances are we can increase your long-term care coverage. There's a good possibility that we can do that. It's a question of doing that assessment and making sure that we can find a way to do that.
And if you have not identified, they did put their contact information in the chat area if you need it right away. Or, of course, we have recorded this session and we'll be editing that and sending that back out to you, and we'll include that information at that time. What you'll also get is a recent one-pager called Access to Choice. And we believe that it's not enough for the state of Illinois to just provide you with a one-size-fits-all healthcare insurance plan, as you've mentioned. And so we want to make sure you have that information at your disposal, as well as the latest information on how to work with your, I think they call it a case officer or something.
Single case manager.
Single case manager to create a case as needed out of state or at Mayo Clinic or at some of those specialty areas. And of course, SUA is here to help you navigate that. First and foremost, please share with us the experience. That's our best way to explain to the elected officials and other policymakers this is the impact of those decisions. And we just appreciate being able to be your sounding board and making sure that the state understands how it impacts you every day. I don't see any questions at this time, so I'm going to throw it back to Mickey and George with what's the most common question you usually get that you haven't gotten yet this morning? How's that?
Sure. One of the questions that we do work with and have a team, or at least referral partners in, is when a person asks, or when we're sitting with someone, hey, how do you put together a will, or how do you put together a trust? And what are the differences of revocable or irrevocable, and how do we protect, let's just say, our home? Many times the assets are protected, or the pension, but the home is a question, and just wanting to help them be able to make sure, whether it's their children or whoever it may be, that they're wanting to have that legacy built into the system when life events happen, or life comes to an end, that they're covered. So that's one of the questions that people ask. It is not always common, but we found many just don't have that in place, and so we can help on that side with people we work with that may be legal orientated attorneys and lawyers to be able to help those that need that as a service.
And I would just add, from my end, so many of my clients have the same concerns: the cost of medical procedures and coverage, and outliving their money. And as an overall topic, it's very easy to be overwhelmed by all of this, and we get that. And question number one often is, well, who would I even call to speak on XYZ matter? Who has the answer? So, the first solution is really make the call. Let's get a plan in place and help you to have that understanding so you feel some empowerment, right? So concerning the coverage that you have that is sponsored by your retirement, there are many things here we can't have an effect on. We have to go to the government and see if they'll give us choice and like that. But in the meantime, we can focus on the things that we can have some say in, some control in, make sure we get, for example, long-term care coverage or short-term care coverage, whichever is the best fit for you. The ancillary coverage, meanwhile, we're working towards having your representatives get you more options for your main coverage, right? So we have to work on it, on multiple fronts. And I think that's really the topic of the day here with SUAA clients.
I appreciate so much too, Brian and Thomas, and the relationship that we've been able to, continue to build with SUAA, and, would love the opportunity, Mick and I and others that are on our team to be able to, help. And, again, going back to educate and inform, and also just know, we're, as much as we say, we work in these specific, territories, if we don't know something, we usually will state that and say, just give me some time to be able to review this with the team that we have, to be able to then bring accurate information back. And that's, important. I try not to kind of fly off the cuff and be an expert in every field. And so that's an important factor. We've got a great team of individuals, both Key Retirement Solutions and also American Senior Benefits, that have, back office teams for, retirement, long-term care, life insurance, Medicare, all of the things that we've talked about, that we are not alone in the side of, working with, individuals and trying to help them.
George, Mickey, we're coming around to the bend here. I want to give you guys some time for some closing comments here. Everyone within the sound of my voice, if you have questions you think of after we hang up, obviously, if you wish to ask Thomas or myself or someone at SUAA, send it our way. If you hope to contact George or Mickey directly, you're going to have that information as well. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. George, Mickey, final words?
Go ahead, Mick, you've got something and I'll try to.
Sure. I want to thank Brian and Thomas and all the members for turning out today. It is our intention to make this a series of webinars to inform our constituents and empower you guys with knowledge. So please come back. We'll have more information for you. And thanks again so much for joining us today.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't wait to just continue to, help folks. And there has been many that have come our direction through the relationship with SUAA. And that's been just, we're very grateful for that. And we take that very seriously on the side of making sure that we're taking care of those that are coming our direction with the trust that's been built. So we definitely are grateful and appreciate, all that SUAA does, along with how we can come alongside and really help those that are retired or those that are still working and the questions they have. Even if it's outside of our wheelhouse, we'll say that's something we don't do, but we may give a recommendation on where to potentially go with someone that we know that does that well.
Yeah, if I don't know, I got a guy that does.
I got a guy or gal. Yeah, it's really a wonderful thing to be able to help people navigate things that are not easy to understand. And that has been a challenge, and the calls that people receive. And I can tell you, I turned 64 today, and I can already tell you I've got hundreds of calls that have come in that I've had to at times block just because it's relentless. And I just, want you to know that, cell phones are available. We are local. We're willing to do things in a convenient way, that whether it's at your workplace or whether it's in your home, or if that's a call or a Zoom call and just a number of, times together, whatever that takes to be able to, bring what you think is needed in your situation. We love doing that.
Well, thank you, George. Thank you, Mickey. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning. It's rare, but we're on time, and we give you back the rest of your day. Thank you so much for all that you do, George and Mickey, and thank you to the SUA members who joined us this morning, and we'll be interested to continue this work and hear from you again. And yes, Deborah, we will be providing you a PowerPoint in the recording and some of those other materials as well, like we've mentioned. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, bless you.